know what, Niharika, and I think this is really a message I want to tell everybody that if you do something with a higher purpose, with a giving sense, right? And if you do something with full authenticity, not out of fear, but out of love, right? And if you show up with that energy, the world is going to actually love it.
Hi, welcome to episode 2 of Never Make a U Turn. Today we have with us Kanu Priya Sekhri. I am so grateful that she made it to our show. She is a graduate of IIM Bangalore and has found her way for energy healing and has been teaching and working with people to help them understand the power of family constellations and if they have blockages coming from their constellations. Interesting, right? She is a Reiki practitioner and she has a 2-year diploma from Tasso Institute Amsterdam. Let's welcome her, and I know you will be learning so much from her today. Hi, Kanu. Thank you so much for joining us from India. I know you are very busy. A lot of people need help, and you are one of those souls who are helping a lot of people globally. So, thank you so much, and we are very grateful to have you on this show. Now, I want to start with a very basic but a very essential question that is key to your life. When you were a child, you were dreaming of something, but now you are completely doing something different. How did you come to this journey where you are today?
Thank you. I think that's such a great question to start with, not just for the audience, but for me to just go back on that reflective journey. So thanks, Niharika, for asking such a powerful question. Also, because I believe childhood is where all our answers lie. So it's a great starting point. So, when I was a kid, I think the very first time I thought of what is it that I want to do was when I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And at that time, the dream that I thought I had was to join India's services, the administrative services which serve the country and serve the government and help people develop, right? And I think this came from a very core belief inside me that I'm here to help people, to make the world a better place, to do what's needed. So at that time, that was my framework of what is needed and how the world can be helped. Will you believe when I outgrew that and I said that, okay, that's not really what I want to do? Another dream that came my way very strangely was that I just need to work in entertainment. So, be it like Disneyland or the movies, because I thought that those are also things that make people happy. And so I just want to make people happy. And this was when I was about 15 or 16 that I thought this way. Moving forward, I did my management degree. I joined one of the best colleges in India to do my MBA. And I started thinking, now what next? At that time, my dream then began to become working with the nonprofit sector because that's at that age, I thought that that's the way to give back, that's the way to help people. So even though I was at an IIM where people generally join the corporate sector, I was still dreaming about the nonprofit space because I really wanted to make a difference. So as you can see, my theme has been fairly consistent of making a difference, having a larger purpose, working with people, but I was clueless on how to do it. And therefore, even though I had this very clear vision inside that this is what I'm meant to do, I did not have the tools to discover how to do it. So I took up a corporate job, and which honestly I'm glad I did. A lot of good things came from there, a lot of learning came from there. And then I joined the education space, which kind of moved me closer to giving back and creating purpose, creating meaning out of your work. So I really enjoyed working in the education sector, starting my own company, working with amazing people there. And then it took a physical issue in 2017 or a realization of a physical issue for me to really, really reconnect with myself. And we'll speak more about that, but that's what then really got me to say, you know what? I really need to get back to really working with people because that's who I had always been. And so in 2017, when I discovered this whole space of psychotherapy, of helping people connect to their soul, to their calling, to their pain, and then transfer that pain into something beautiful, like I did for myself, that's when I said, okay, this is the path. And I can't be grateful enough for all the pain that I had in my life that led me to that in 2017, because that's when my journey really began. And for the past 7 years, I would say I'm at that space where I'm so joyful doing what I do. I just keep finding more and more joy in it. I keep going deeper and deeper in it. So that's how I just landed here, really by chance, really through pain. And life pushed me into it. I don't think there was a strategy, I don't think there was a plan. I was just bumbling along, and then life said, "Here you go. That's where you need to be." And what I did there, the little credit I can take, is that I took action. So once I realized that there is this path, I started taking action. I started, building commitment and saying yes, being brave, taking risks, and showing up fully, right? And that's how I could really build this career of anyone's dreams.
I think that's an incredibly beautiful story of yours and the path that you took, and definitely a courageous one. So I want to understand, the way you are telling it looks very easy, but I know it wasn't easy. So can you touch base on the challenges and the most beautiful or the highest learning that you have ever learned to imbibe in your life till now?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you ask very powerful questions. You know, uh, for the challenge also, I'll just go back a little bit to the time when I was 15, and that typical time in everybody's age when you need to choose your subjects and you need to see what you really want to specialize in and what you need to pick up when you're going to college. Will you believe, at that age, at 15, there was a voice inside me that said, take psychology, take psychology. But the systems around me, of course, were scared that if you take psychology, there's no future. At that time, there wasn't. We're talking about 1997, right? And I totally, totally appreciate that that time the world was not geared, at least here in India, to appreciate that subject choice, right? And so, for very, very practical reasons, I was guided towards the business space, the management space, and there was more opportunity there. But I do also clearly remember, I don't know whether he does, but I clearly remember that when I told my father I want to do psychology, and a very, very supportive dad, he told me that, you know what, why don't you first do management? And then sometime in life, you can always do psychology and just pick it up anytime. I'm sure you'll be great at it. And so when at 35, I turned towards it, I told myself in my head also that, okay, now's the time. I'm turning to that subject that I wanted to at 15. And why I'm telling you this story, Niharika, is because that was the most significant challenge, to say yes to something that you had previously been stopped from doing. Because there's an inner child in all of us, and at least there was very much in me, that needed to please the people around me, that needed to please my family, the world, everybody around me at that time, right? So the hardest part for me was to say, yes, I'm good at this, and this is what I love, and this is what I'm going to do. Even when I started studying this subject for 2 years, we were going through this whole diploma on transpersonal therapy. I never thought I'd practice it because I was so ingrained in the conditioning that you're a management student, you run businesses, you make money, that it was very hard for me to say that, oh, I could be in this field of healing. I think it was hard for me for a long time to even say that I'm a healer or I'm an energy coach or I'm a therapist. All those words came so hard to me. And you know what it took? It really took COVID. It took the world crashing around me. It took friends going down with anxiety, with depression, with business losses, with relationship losses, for me to wake up and say, come on, girl, you're sitting on something that's a solution for people. And you're just stopping yourself because of what will people say? Like, just come on, get out there and share your message. So it was exactly March of 2020, when COVID was all around us, that I got up and showed up on social media. And this was a whole year or 2 years after I had started practicing pretty surreptitiously without really telling people I'm practicing. It took me 2 years and COVID to get there and show up and say, guys, this is what I do. It took me 2 years to say, I'm closing my other business. I'm not doing that anymore. And this is how I'm showing up in the world now. And even after that, I wouldn't say the journey was easy. So just showing up authentically as who you are has been the biggest challenge. And I'm so grateful that now I can help other people do exactly that.
That's why I initially said it takes a lot of courage to accept what you are supposed to do and break all those pre notions that already exist in our family, of course, as well as our society. Now, coming to another question, I would ask like, when you change your perspective, okay, this is my inner voice and this is where I'm directing to, how did the people take it? Because suddenly something happens to you, your personality changes, but it's not like happening very like instantaneously. It was already there, imbibing inside, and that gradually it happened for you. But for other people, when you show up on social media, okay, I'm doing this, how were you perceived, and how did you take those notions of which is not acceptable to the society initially to yourself at that point?
But you know what, Niharika, and I think this is really a message I want to tell everybody, that if you do something with a higher purpose, with a giving sense, right? And if you do something with full authenticity, not out of fear, but out of love, right? And if you show up with that energy, the world is going to actually love it. So, to my amazement, to that very message, I got so many replies saying that, oh my God, we need a session with you. When can we sign up? People from like way back, people from college and school and companies where I worked started connecting with me and became some of my first clients. Neighbors who I had known for years became some of my first clients. And it just went on a roll. I mean, work just kept picking up pace. I was doing like 3 sessions a day, I was doing 20 sessions a week. I had no idea of time because so many people needed it, right? And there was so much acceptance for what I was doing that there was this whole circle of people who knew me and loved me, friends, colleagues, right? Who were telling me now that, this is what you've always been meant to do. And I'm so glad you found it. So it's almost as if they knew, but they didn't articulate it. I didn't realize it. But when I did, they actually came back as, my biggest cheerleaders. And, everybody around me just said that this is what you were meant to do. So I'm glad you're doing it. So there was actually a lot of support. The voices, Niharika, are all ours. It's not around us, right? All that doubt, all that fear is actually just within us. And so, yes, the voice is within me continued. That 100% continued, saying that, am I good enough for this? Am I really meant to do this? Will I even make money out of this? How will I sustain? How will I achieve my dreams? All those voices went on and on for another couple of years, and it took even more inner work to silence the voices within. And it was really with the support of what I call these angels around me who would randomly message me or tell me, saying that, I'm so glad you found your calling. That really kept me going. And yes, there were many people also who said that you've just changed, from who you were. But I always took that as appreciation, whether they meant it or not. But I said, okay, good. I'm glad I did.
I mean, to hear from your perception, it feels like anybody who has that inner drive that can actually become their own profession and uniqueness, that they are born to serve this because it is very unique to them, and that's why they're born for a purpose here, right?
Yeah. And for that, you need to silence your inner voice. That's the only thing you need to do. Because if your inner voice is self doubt, you'll attract that outside. And that's the biggest thing you need to change. Silence your inner critic, the outside will get silenced.
Great, great, great point to share. And then I would also like to ask you, like, when you entered into that unknown, picking up the courage, okay, I want to do this and this is my path. How did the universe actually help you? So you talked about random messages. Would you like to share, like, how this magical universe dropped certain messages and you are kind of learning the like talks of the universe, like how does this work, but at the same time it's already working, so you're trying to decipher, okay, am I really getting something, or is it just my subconscious telling me something, like, or am I really not getting anything, but I'm sensing that I'm getting it. So it's very like tipsy and topsy,
Confusing, yes.
right? So something new is happening, and you're picking those certain things, and at the same time, you cannot talk to other people about it because they aren't having the same things like you. So how do you deal? deal with that.
I hear you. I so hear you. I've totally been there and sometimes still am. It's not like the journey is over, right? And it's so important to keep tuning within you because the more you tune outside, the more confusion you create. But yes, I have been fortunate that those voices kept showing up. So I'll tell you a couple of things that worked for me that I hope will work for you and many, many others as well in your own journeys. One is to stay with the question. So, I continuously stayed with the question on what do I need to do here? Who do I need to be here? How do I need to show up here? And I think that was consistent for me. It wasn't a time of the day when I thought about it or a journaling time when I did it, right? In everything that I did, whether it was a session for somebody, whether it was a social media post, whether it was the book that I started writing, that question kept churning in my head. And consistently, the answer that I got was one of service, was one of being there for people, right? And so when I could keep going higher and higher in that, life just kept becoming simpler and simpler. So even now, sometimes when I, think of, say, worry about, say, the future or, okay, how do I grow this? Or, those typical worries that we're conditioned to worry about, I can see my own energy drop. And when my own energy drops, then of course everything around me starts dropping too. So then I do processes, I do practices like meditation or other inner work to pick up my energy again and get back into the space of not fear, but love. And that really picks up my energy again. I vibrate at a different level, and then I attract it from outside as well. So stay with the question of who do I need to be? How do I need to show up? How can I do more? Let that question just resonate all around you. And the other thing that got me these messages, as you're saying, is to take action. I am an action taker, so I think that's just part of who I am. So it was easier for me, but without taking action, really nothing happens. And one of the game changing actions that I took was actually to sign on a coach very early in my journey because the world had gone online during COVID, right? And so all of us who worked with people face to face were suddenly wondering, how do we do this? And of course, there was Zoom and we had started having sessions, but I was getting this realization that I cannot keep doing individual sessions. I need to do something bigger. And at that time, thanks to podcasts and YouTube videos like you're doing today, I came across a coach, an American coach who runs a company called Live Your Message. And I started working with her as part of her team that, they coach. So I was a student there. And I took up this 3-month program where I went through the basics of how to create an online program and how to reach people. And this was totally new to me, even though you've done your MBA and you've studied all that, but the digital world was very, very new to me. So I actually learned it from scratch like a student. This was in October to December of 2020. And that was life changing because that's when I really understood the internet space. I started showing up differently. I started taking action and I created my flagship program called the Heartbeat Solution during those 3 months. And I launched it in January of 2021. I've been running it for all these years. And so, yeah, taking action really gets you the right people. So, when you're willing to take action, the right people show up. So, those two things are something I would really say stay with. Asking yourself this question of how do I show up and taking action.
So, when you talk about taking action, has there any time in your life when you thought, okay, I am taking action, but this is not working? So, I have to
Mm.
stay down, I have to step back, I have to pause and leave this for now and let it come back to me. Has that also happened with you?
I want to talk about the time before I started this work, right? Because that's also very, very relevant to my life. So I ran an organization that I began in 2013 called Influent. And I loved it with all of my heart because what we were doing there is helping children and adults learn the skills of communicating better, of presenting better, which are such important skills to have, right? Because that's how you show up in the world, that's how you share your message, so it was something I was really passionate about. I still am. I think communication is very linked to who you are, and the two are very, very linked. So I really enjoyed doing that. So I started this organization. I had a wonderful team of about 10 women who would take this curriculum to different institutes, organizations, schools, groups, and help people overcome their barriers of confidence and really speak up. But in Influent, I was not making money. I was making enough money to pay salaries or meet my costs, but I wasn't making money to pay myself a salary. And for almost 7 to 8 years, that was my journey. And I allowed that to happen because on the side, I would take up these projects with corporates that would, make me my regular money. And so, for a long time, Niharika, I was using the power of visualization, manifestation, and everything else you can think of, but I was not making money. Yes, we were making an impact, a huge impact. We worked with 8 to 10,000 people, but it was just not working as a business, and I could not see it scaling. And what I needed to do to scale it was not resonating with me as a person. And then I came across this beautiful quote by Louis Hay, which said that if you're giving your all to something and you're doing it with all of your heart, with all of your passion, and you think you're doing everything right, but it's still not working for you, then probably it's not meant to be. And that really hit me hard because I'd been trying this thing with all of my passion for 6, 7 years, and yet I wasn't able to grow it to the way I wanted to. And it made me wonder why. And luckily, at the same time, this work, the work that I do now, came into my life. And that's when I started realizing that when you're really authentically true to yourself and to who you are, things come more easily. And the challenges, just melt away. And then the same person making the same efforts just gets greater rewards. So I think it's so important for all of us to step back and ask ourselves why we're doing something. And what really helped me there was exactly the work that I do with people today. It's called constellation work, and it helps you discover some of the hidden barriers that you may not be seeing. So, one of the hidden barriers I saw was that I was really doing this for a promise I had made in my head to children all over, saying that I'm going to be there for you and I'm going to help you reach your potential. But hey, that's too big a promise. That's too heavy a promise. I couldn't carry it. And so, the work that I do now for others, I did for myself, but I helped myself release that promise and say, this isn't working. I need to move on from here. And when I did move on from there, life just got so much easier, so much better. Business got so much better because it wasn't business anymore. It was a calling. And that's when it got easier. So do check in when you feel stuck on why you're doing what you're doing, because that's where the answers may lie.
And also the universe telling you, okay, with the message of the code that you just stated, like you need to turn your direction because the lesson you have already learned, they are going to transfer into this new thing. So I think
Totally.
that was also a
I love what you just said there because one of the biggest things that I did there was facilitation, which is exactly what I'm doing now when I'm moving from working one on one to groups and I'm hosting retreats. I'm actually using the same principles that I did in those 7 years. So thank you for saying that. There's always a purpose.
my privilege because in my journey I have realized if something is not working, it the answer will come to you. Or you have to wait for let that thing happen to you because the timing of your life has not come to that vibration where you can pick up those things just instantly.
Yeah,
So yes, so tell me about something which is very interesting that you're doing. I have not heard it yet. The constellation healing,
yeah.
what is that?
Oh, it's one of the most beautiful processes of really connecting to your hidden stories. And it started by a person called Bert Hellinger as something that he then called family constellations. So, Bert Hellinger, based out of Germany, had worked with a lot of people to understand their traumas and help them release it by understanding their own families better. So, that's how it began. And as he started working with people to understand the stories in their family that could be holding them back, he realized that there were certain principles that really, really flow in each of our family systems and in every system in the world that we need to follow. And when those systems aren't followed, barriers start coming up. And those barriers can impact generations. So now it's often also called intergenerational trauma, which perhaps you've heard of. So the intergenerational trauma is real, and it's hilarious when I talk to people about it because very scientific minded people who believe in genes and believe that you can inherit your grandmother's eyes or your grandfather's hair, but you can't inherit their trauma. How does that happen? Emotions reside in our body, I always say, right? So they do come down into our genetic mapping, and you do carry on these stories of trauma because we are a soul family at the end of the day. So, as a soul family, we have the similar lessons to learn. And honestly, it's not even just our family, Niharika. I think we as a world are all connected. You and I, we may be far off in countries, but we are essentially running the same patterns, the same stories. And one of the biggest lessons that this work helps you do is understand balance and understand love. And understand that if love is blocked, a lot of things get blocked. So it's really important in this work to go back and see where in your family system was love blocked. Was it between your parents or between your parents and you? Or was there another partner in the marriage for one of them and love was blocked there? Or maybe your grandparents, great grandparents, and their stories, right? So, this work really helps you find those hidden stories, acknowledge them, and then bring back love into your system. And this works beautifully in groups as well as individually. It really helps you to overcome things that you may not even have thought of. So I do this as individual sessions. I also do this as group work in my retreats. And I couldn't be more grateful for landing here. But feel free to ask questions and help me get more clarity about this.
I mean, this is great. Not many people know about it. I just had an idea, but the depth that you explained, I think it is making more sense. Like why it is essential and how does this actually affect us as an individual to not open to our true selves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And many people keep figuring out life within themselves or their childhood. But the key to it all may actually be an intergenerational trauma, which you're not recognizing. So even the trauma that we have as citizens of a country really impacts us. So in a lot of my sessions, for example, the partition of our Indian subcontinent in 1947 does come up. And a lot of people go up to how their grandparents went through trauma, and that's still carrying in the system as anxiety, as depression, as fear, as loss of money, as loss of relationships. The patterns they are carrying today have started somewhere else.
right, right. So, Kanu, like, do you have any favorite book of yours that was actually gifted to you by the universe, of course, like that had so much of information that you couldn't find anywhere out to ooze out your pain and to help your journey to be understood by yourself?
Oh, wow. So many, so many. I'll tell you the top three that come to mind, if that's okay, because each may resonate with somebody else. And these are kind of in chronological order as I grew up, right? So the very first one that came my way back, was Celestine Prophecy. And the Celestine Prophecy is just a beautiful gift. Almost always you get it like from the universe, like you said, oddly, you don't know when it shows up in your life. But pick it up if you haven't yet, anybody listening to this. And Celestine Prophecy was the first book that introduced me to the concept of energy work, right? Of just the fact that we are more than our human body. So I still remember one of the key concepts from there that helped me way back when I was struggling with relationships at a much younger age, that if you are a C and you're trying to find another C that will make you a whole, that's not going to work. You need to be a whole. And that's when you find another one, and then life is easy, right? So I think all of us for the longest time have been like a C trying to find another C and imagining that that will complete us. Celestine Prophecy taught us long back that that's not happening. And the second book that I loved, and this is again from way back, but I started understanding it only when I arrived in this space, was by Richard Bach, and it's called simply One. And the whole concept is what we were speaking about a little while ago, that we are all essentially one and we're all connected, and not just with each other, but in parallel lifetimes with ourselves, in our future selves. And one is one of the most beautiful fictional representations of life as I understand it today. And it's a must read, One by Richard Bach. It's a book I go back to very often, the kind of high vibration book which you just pick up and open a page and it gives you a message. One is that for me. And I think most recently, one of the books that I've really, really loved is called Making Life Easy. It's by Christine Northrup, a doctor turned energy practitioner. And oh my God, every page of that book is a huge lesson on its own. Not just that, it resonates completely with the work that I do and what I've been taught in the training that I took. So maybe that's why it's a huge favorite now. I always recommend it to clients, and I feel like that's the one book anyone needs if they're struggling. And you just go through that page by page, and it will really make your life easy.
So, thank you for sharing your loved books that are gifted to you, which are really helpful in your life. I want to ask, like, were there certain belief systems that you believed from your childhood and they broke in between when you started to perceive the knowledge that you should always have? How does that work for you?
I'm sure they would have been, but even as you asked me that question, I'm taken back to myself, my earlier version of myself. I don't think I was even aware of my belief systems. And that's a huge difference I see between my 25-year-old self and the 25-year-olds today. That they're much more aware, they're asking these questions, they're going deeper, right? I think we were just bumbling along, trying to figure out life and career and relationships and health. And we didn't really stop to think much, at least I didn't. So I remember it was only when I started this work that I started actually questioning my beliefs or even forming beliefs and saying, what do I even believe in? And now, when you ask me that, I think two things are coming up for me. One is the basic difference between happiness that I was trying to find earlier and joy. So, for me, happiness was something that I was chasing from a very young age because at the age of 15, I started getting curious about life purpose and spirituality. So I was that little annoying teenager who would go into various classes and ask, what is life's purpose and why are we born and what are we here for? And I could almost see these spiritual teachers saying, like, okay, you'll figure, give it time. But, I don't think I got a satisfactory answer at that time. But one of the answers that I just took up at that time was, okay, maybe I'm here to find happiness, to understand how to be happy every day. And so a lot of what I would do would be manufactured to say, no, I'm happy and I'm happy. Till when I came into this practice, I realized that no, I mean, that's such a conditioning. Why do I have to just be happy all the time? I'm human. I'll have a variety of emotions, and that's okay as long as I don't get stuck in those emotions, right? So I could be angry, but then can I let it go? I could be sad, but can I let it go? I could be grieving, and you must, but can you then let it go? So, can you be somebody who moves through emotions rather than staying stuck in them and trying to find happiness? So, that's what I was doing. I was actually stuck in an emotion and trying to find happiness. Now that has shifted to saying that I actually have joy inside me. I love that distinction that I learned from my Kriya Yoga practice between happiness and joy. So now I have joy inside me, and I can tap into that whenever I have an emotion that I don't need, right? So I can simply go within me and tap into that. And that's a huge shift in my belief system. But the other one that comes to my mind, and a lot of people may resonate with this, is hard work. So we've grown up on hearing that you need to work hard to achieve anything. And I think that served us well. But that shifted for me when I now approach work again with a lot of joy, but with these new words of consistency and discipline and not hard work. I think hard work just sounds too hard. So, as a mom now, I don't like pushing hard work on my kids. I like talking about consistency and discipline because I think that's essentially what you need. You don't need to make it hard, you need to make it joyful and just, do it consistently with a lot of joy. And that's when good things will happen. So, that's another significant shift in my belief system.
I think those are the great sharings because there are not people who are realizing that they are doing it for a living, but at the same time, they're not happy.
Yeah,
And there are certain things that we need to shift in our life, which is not easy. So, specifically those. But again, at the same time, I feel it's the journey that you live. So, everybody has a different timing to realize that.
absolutely. Mm.
So, Kanu, you have walked through this incredible journey. I want to understand what were your breaking points and how did you pick yourself at those moments where you are not supposed to cry but you're still crying, where you're not supposed to wait, you're still waiting. How did you cope up with those moments and what did you figure out? Okay, how does life happens to you?
Mm. So I think it's interesting you asked me that because it was, I think, at one of my lowest points that I came into this work. So I was just held, honestly, by the universe because the physical issue that I had developed after my second pregnancy was just leading me into more and more confusion about how do I get my health on track, and nothing was giving me the right answers. And no medical practitioner was being able to help me. It was all being very confusing. I didn't even know what the issue really was. And that's when somebody recommended alternate therapy. And so that's how I first showed up at my first session. And oh my God, I mean, I just feel the universe was holding me because if that hadn't happened when it did, I just didn't know where to go from there. I had tried every trick in the book. But I landed up for this session thanks to another angel in our lives, a friend of my mom's who recommended this. And from there, I started getting this huge support in terms of this community of healers who was taking us through, past lives, family constellations, inner child work, aura cleaning, loads and loads of things that really helped me overcome that lowest point in my life. So when a lot of people ask me this question, and some of them even compliment me for saying that how beautiful you came out of it, I say it's not about me. I was just held by this process, by this framework of healing that I now practice and I think everybody needs. So that was one of the points that's coming to my mind. But having said that, of course, highs and lows keep happening. Like I said, we're humans, right? So even in this journey, whenever I am feeling low, the only thing that helps is really turning inwards, and I turned towards meditation. So it was again around the same time that I learned all these practices and started practicing. That I started learning Kriya Yoga. It's one of the most ancient, most powerful forms of meditation by Paramhansa Yogananda and the lineage of gurus before him. And so I learned it, I got initiated into it, and I now practice it deeply. And that's my turning inwards that I do at any low point. But apart from that, because you can't, when you're especially low, you can't just sit and meditate. So apart from that, there are several techniques that I teach and therefore I adopt for myself to come out of a low point and then turn inwards. Journaling is definitely one of them. So I think there are so many times when I journal just to release something, right? It releases anger, it releases sadness, it releases confusion. A lot of times I'm low simply because I'm confused, and writing out really helps. I use the emotional freedom tapping technique. Are you familiar with that tool? The EFT. It's a beautiful tool that all of us can really, really benefit from. Whatever we're going through takes few minutes to do, really, and that's why I teach it in my program because EFT can really lift you up from wherever you are in a matter of minutes. So I practice EFT, and then when I'm feeling more settled and I'm ready to go within, I go into my meditation.
So, Kanu, I would like to hear about EFT that you just told. Would you want to explain that a little more, please?
Yeah. Yeah. So EFT is again a fairly old practice, really called the emotional freedom tapping technique, and I learned it from a person who teaches it in back in 2007, I think, and I've been practicing ever since. You can use EFT for physical, mental, emotional, any kind of ailment that you're going through. You can use it for small things. You can use it for big things, right? So I've even used it for things like a cold, a cough, a headache, and I've even used it for feeling sad, angry, or grieving, right? How it works, Niharika, is a combination of tapping, something like acupressure that you can do to yourself. So there are these points on our body, like meridians, which you can tap. And there's a little, what should I say, sequence in which you tap these points, and a combination of that and affirmations. And the very first affirmation that I really love is so simple, so beautiful. It says, even though I'm feeling, and then you substitute whatever you're feeling, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Isn't that beautiful? So, whether it's a cold, or whether it's a fight you've had, or whether it's a struggle in your work, if you can love and accept yourself deeply and completely, half the battle is won. And often when I'm doing this for myself or others, I really realize that half the battle is won just with that affirmation. Because say you're struggling with like a physical issue, say a cramp or a headache or a cold, half the issue is that we're not accepting it, that we're wanting to fight it, we're wanting to be okay, we're wanting to get out of it, right? And so just getting into that acceptance of the state that you're in calms you down. And you get into the state where you say, okay. And when you calm down, your vibration goes up and there are more chances that you heal after that. And then, of course, when you're tapping all these points, there are certain blockages that you're clearing out that then help you to feel better. Actually, it's not just a placebo effect, right? So, EFT is this beautiful 5-minute technique that I really, really encourage all my clients to turn towards, because I don't believe that people need to keep coming back to me. I believe everybody has, healing in their fingertips, in their soul, in the background of their eyes. They just need to do it themselves. That's why I teach it.
I mean, this is a beautiful thing that I think we came across today, and most of the people who would listen to us will resonate with this, especially this new thing, because we don't know something. And if we take this beautiful thing, which is known as EFT, I think it will help a lot of people. As you said, like, people cannot come back again and again,
Yeah.
but you want them to be their own, like, self learned, like, mechanisms to be turned on in them, so that they can really become their own self-guided souls to whatever problem they're facing in their life, right?
100%. That is my message, that it's all within you.
So Kanu, would you like to give certain messages or a message that you really strongly feel in your gut, like, this is what I need to speak out today? What would that message be?
So, something that's coming up for me a lot nowadays is to tell people that just as you heal physical wounds, you need to heal your emotional wounds as well. And people don't realize it, but your emotional wounds that you've kept covered, we've put them in little boxes and stored them. Where have you stored them? You stored them in your body. And that's why, like, I began this journey with a physical issue that helped me realize how many emotional issues I had just buried in this whole mindset of saying I have to be happy, I have to make people happy, and living that life which just did not really honor my own stories, right? So you have to be very cognizant of the past emotional wounds and heal them. Of course, there's I do not subscribe to staying with past wounds. I subscribe to looking at them, healing them, and then moving on. There are a lot of people out there who say that we stay in the present moment, but I don't think they do. They've only learned to put these wounds into boxes, and these boxes have started getting stored in their bodies. So they may think they're living in the present moment, but their body is paying a price. I have clients who don't understand this immediately, but come to me with physical issues, like, it could be anything from a knee issue or a back issue or a migraine or a blood pressure issue. And when we really go into that, we realize there's so many unaddressed emotions. And when they start working on that, expressing that, releasing that, understanding that, and bringing back that blocked love that we spoke about, the emotions release, and then the physical issue starts getting better and life starts getting easier. So it's really time that all of us turn to this energy work. It is the age of energy work, and start healing our emotional wounds as well.
So that was really a beautiful, heart touching message. At the end, I would really ask you, like, what is this age of healing,
Yeah.
and where did this concept come from, and where is this taking us?
I have a feeling we all already know, including you, because I think we are all sensing it that now more than ever before, there are people who are getting more and more tuned to just sensing things or feeling energy. All of us, it's not any special sect of people that are feeling this way. We all have these gut feelings, we have this intuition, we have this felt sense of something, right? Now, whether we listen to that or not is a choice, but we all have it within us, and that is increasing because of the way the earth is moving. So there, traditionally in the Hindu Vedas, we've learned that there are these segments of years, we call them the yugs. So we were in something called the Kal Yuga, and we're moving into the Dwapar Yuga. And there are various beliefs on this, Niharika. So some people believe that we've already moved, some people believe we are moving, some people believe we are yet to move, whatever the belief, but there is a common understanding that the yuga that we're moving towards, which is the Dwapar Yuga, is all about energy work. And that's what we're all moving towards. So we have a physical body, right, which we all see, but we also have an energetic body that surrounds us, that's within us, which we don't see, but we can all feel. Because so many times you have these psychosomatic problems, which doctors say that they're not really in the body. So where are they? They're in your energy body. Because you can't tell people that, oh, you don't really have a pain. You do have a pain, but your body is not identifying with this because it's in your energy body. So, more and more as time goes by, you'll see all around you that more and more people are turning to energy work like Reiki or EFT or soul work through constellations or past lives or inner child. Or, there's so many modalities, really, right? And meditation, the biggest, highest modality of them all, because the time is changing, and that's changing because of the movement of the earth.
Thank you so much for that valuable piece of information. So, Kanu, once again, I would like to say that we are very grateful to have you on our platform because we really want to get people out and we want to tell and advocate about people who have really changed the ways they were living once
Oh,
and they
yeah.
are on a new journey. It takes a lot of courage to first identify yourself, break that old patterns, and then walk a new life in which you still don't have clarity, but you have trust in that unknown that this is my path and I'll figure it out on the way, no matter what. Even if things are falling, I'm still brave to pick that up because I've already done that once.
So beautifully said. I love how you said that.
Thank you so much. So I'll just end this podcast, but I am sure you would be coming back someday again. I don't know. I just have that feeling you're
So
coming
much
back.
more to talk about. I'll definitely be back. Thank you,
Yeah.
Nihharika. It's been wonderful talking to you. And I love your signature line, Kar bhala to ho bhala. So true.
Oh, thank you so much, Kanu. So yeah, thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Niharika. And all the best for this wonderful work that you're doing.
And you too. My blessings are always with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.